Right now, tens of millions of Americans are carrying debt that feels unpayable. Credit cards, student loans, medical bills, car loans. These aren't just numbers on a screen. They're real people waking up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, calculating whether they can afford groceries this week. Maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're working full time, doing everything right, and still drowning. Here's what the financial industry doesn't want you to know. There are proven legal strategies that can break you free. In the next hour, I'm going to show you exactly how to eliminate debt. The same strategies bankruptcy attorneys charge thousands of dollars to explain. This isn't theory. This is a complete roadmap. Here's what we're covering in the next hour. First, we're diving into the psychology of debt. Why you're trapped isn't your fault. It's by design. I'll show you exactly how banks use cognitive biases to keep you paying forever. Then we'll break down the 5 types of debt destroying American families: credit cards, student loans, medical debt, auto loans, and payday loans. Each one is a different trap, and you need to know which one you're dealing with. After that, the debt elimination strategies: snowball method, avalanche method, debt consolidation, negotiation tactics, and settlement options. I'll tell you which one works for your specific situation. Then we're decoding bankruptcy, Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13, when it's the right choice, how it actually works, and how to rebuild afterward. I'm destroying the myths that keep people suffering unnecessarily. Finally, your complete 90-day action plan. Week by week, exactly what to do starting Monday morning. By the end of this video, you'll have templates, scripts, and a step-by-step system you can start using today. So grab a notebook. Let's begin. Step 1. The psychology of debt. How banks keep you trapped. When we talk about debt, we're not really talking about numbers. We're talking about lives. The typical American household carrying credit card debt owes thousands of dollars. Many owe 5-figure amounts. When you add mortgages, car loans, and student debt, total household debt often reaches into 6 figures. For millions of people, this means living paycheck to paycheck. You work, you get paid, you pay your bills, and you're back to zero. Or worse, you're in the negative. Think about this for a moment. How much of your income goes to debt payments every single month? 10%? 20? 30? And how long has this been going on? For most Americans, it's years, sometimes decades. Now here's the question nobody asks. Why do debts keep growing even when you're making payments? You're not stupid. You're not lazy. You're doing what you're supposed to do, making your minimum payments, trying to be responsible. So why does the balance barely move? The answer is psychology. Banks understand how the human brain works better than most of us do, and they've designed the entire system to exploit specific cognitive biases that keep you trapped. Let me give you an example. You have a credit card with a $5,000 balance. The bank sends you a statement that says, minimum payment due, $150. That sounds manageable, right? $150, you can do that. But here's what they don't tell you in big, bold letters. At that payment rate, depending on the APR, it can take years to eliminate the balance, with thousands of dollars going to interest. Your $5,000 balance can easily cost $7,000 to $8,000 or more by the time you're done. But the bank doesn't show you that calculation. They show you the small number, the comfortable number, the number that makes you think, I've got this under control. This is called the minimum payment trap, and it's psychological warfare. The bank knows that humans are terrible at understanding compound interest. We see a small monthly payment, and our brains say, that's fine, I can handle that. We don't naturally calculate forward 30 or 40 months. We focus on the immediate. Can I afford this payment right now? And the answer is usually yes. So we pay the minimum. We feel like we're being responsible, and meanwhile the debt barely decreases, month after month after month. Here's another trap: the delay effect. How many times have you said to yourself, I'll start saving next month? I'll tackle my debt after the holidays. I'll make a budget when things calm down. We all do this. It's called present bias. Our brains prioritize the present moment over the future. We know we should deal with our debt, but there's always something more immediate. A bill that needs paying now, an expense that just came up, an emergency, and so we push the real problem to tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. And while we're delaying, the interest keeps compounding. Banks count on this. They've studied human behavior for decades. They know that most people will take the path of least resistance. Pay the minimum. Avoid the difficult conversation. Put it off until later. And every month you delay is another month they're earning interest on your money. There's also something called the ostrich effect. When things get really bad, we stop looking. We stop opening the statements. We avoid checking our bank balance. We don't want to know how bad it really is because knowing feels overwhelming. So we stick our heads in the sand and hope it gets better on its own. But of course, it doesn't. It gets worse. The debt grows, the calls from collectors start, and by the time we finally look up, we're in a much deeper hole than we were 6 months ago. Let me be very clear about something. If you're in debt, it's not because you're bad with money. It's not because you're irresponsible or lazy or stupid. You are fighting against a system designed by brilliant people whose entire job is to keep you paying. They employ psychologists. They run experiments. They optimize every word on every statement to maximize the chances that you'll stay in debt longer. This is not a fair fight. The first step to getting out of debt is understanding this. You need to recognize that your brain is being manipulated. Once you see the game, you can start playing differently. You can stop paying the minimum and start attacking the principal. You can stop delaying and start acting today. You can stop avoiding and start confronting the real numbers. None of the strategies I'm about to teach you will work if you don't first understand that this is psychological warfare, and you've been on the losing side because you didn't know you were in a battle. So let's recap what we've covered so far. Banks use minimum payments to create the illusion of manageability while maximizing their profit. They exploit present bias, your tendency to prioritize today over tomorrow. They count on the ostrich effect, your desire to avoid uncomfortable truths. These aren't accidents. These are features of the system, and now that you know, you can start fighting back. Step 2. The 5 types of debt destroying American families. Now let's talk about what you're actually fighting. Not all debt is created equal. There are 5 major types of debt crushing Americans right now, and each one works differently. You need to understand which type you're dealing with because the strategy for getting out depends on the specific trap you're in. Let's start with the most common one: credit card debt. More than 175 million Americans have at least one credit card. Among those who carry balances, typical amounts run into thousands of dollars. Many cardholders owe well into 5 figures. Here's how the trap works. Credit card companies offer you rewards, cash back, travel miles, points for every dollar you spend. They make it feel like you're winning. But behind all those rewards are interest rates between 18 and 25% annually. Some cards go even higher, up to 29%. Think about that for a second. If you have a substantial balance at 22% interest and you only make minimum payments, you'll be paying for years and years. The bank is earning thousands in interest while giving you maybe a couple $100 in cashback rewards. You're losing, but it feels like you're winning. Credit cards also have another insidious feature. They make spending feel painless. When you hand over cash, your brain registers the loss. You feel it. But when you swipe a card, there's no pain. It's just a piece of plastic. Studies show that people spend significantly more when using credit cards versus cash, simply because the psychological friction is removed. The credit card companies know this. They want you to swipe more because more spending means more interest for them. Then there's the avalanche effect. You miss one payment, and suddenly your interest rate jumps to the penalty rate, sometimes 29.99%. You're late again, and now there's a late fee. $30, $40. These fees compound. Before you know it, your manageable debt has become unmanageable, and you're stuck in a cycle where you can barely cover the interest, let alone touch the principal. Now let's talk about student loan debt. This is the big one for younger Americans. 45 million people in this country owe a collective $1.7 trillion in student loans. That's trillion with a T. The average borrower owes around $30,000 to $40,000, but plenty of people owe six figures, especially if they went to graduate school. Here's what makes student loans particularly brutal. They're generally not dischargeable absent undue hardship. Unlike credit card debt or medical debt, student loans are extremely difficult to eliminate through bankruptcy. The standard is very high. You essentially have to prove that repaying the loan would cause severe hardship for you and your dependents for the foreseeable future. Though in recent years there have been some procedural changes that may make discharge slightly more accessible in certain cases, it remains rare. The government can garnish your wages, take your tax refunds, even garnish your Social Security benefits when you retire. And the interest rates aren't great either. Federal student loans range from about 5 to 7%, but private student loans can go much higher, sometimes into double digits. If you borrowed $40,000 at 6.5% interest, and you're on a standard 10-year repayment plan, you'll end up paying over $53,000 total. That's $13,000 in interest alone, and that's assuming you never miss a payment, never defer, never go into forbearance. Most people do all of those things, which means they pay even more. For many young Americans, student loan debt determines everything. Whether they can buy a house, whether they can start a family, whether they can take a lower-paying job they actually care about. It's a weight that sits on your shoulders for decades, and unlike previous generations, today's graduates are entering a job market where wages haven't kept up with the cost of education. Your parents might have worked a summer job to pay for college. You can't do that anymore. College costs have increased dramatically in recent decades while wages have barely moved. The system is broken, and an entire generation is paying the price. Next, medical debt. This is the uniquely American nightmare. Medical bills are a major trigger of personal bankruptcies in the U.S., even with insurance. Think about that. People with health insurance still end up bankrupt because they got sick or injured. Even if you have insurance, a serious illness can destroy you financially. Deductibles of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Copays that add up. Out-of-network charges. Ambulance rides that cost thousands of dollars. Hospital stays that run into six figures. I've seen cases where someone had a heart attack, spent a week in the hospital, and came home to a bill for $200,000. Even with insurance covering a significant portion, they're still on the hook for tens of thousands. Medical debt is especially insidious because it's completely unpredictable. You can budget for your rent, your car payment, your groceries. You can't budget for a car accident or a cancer diagnosis. And when it happens, you don't have the luxury of shopping around. You go to the emergency room, you get the treatment. You deal with the bill later. Hospitals know this. They charge what they charge because they know you have no choice. Here's something a lot of people don't know. Medical debt is often negotiable. Hospitals have charity care programs. They have financial assistance. They'll sometimes accept 30 or 40 cents on the dollar if you can pay a lump sum. But most people don't know to ask. They just get the bill, panic, and start making payments or ignore it until it goes to collections. One bit of relief. The credit bureaus have removed paid medical collections and generally don't report medical collections of $500 or less, which can reduce the long-term credit damage from many medical bills. We'll talk about how to negotiate medical debt later in this video, but for now, just know this. Medical debt is not like other debt. It has different rules, and you have more power than you think. Now, auto loans. Americans owe about $1.5 trillion in auto debt. The average car payment is over $500 a month, and loan terms have stretched to 6, 7, even 8 years. Here's the problem. Cars depreciate. The moment you drive off the lot, your car loses about 20% of its value. In the first year, it loses another 10 to 15%. So you're paying for something that's worth less every single month. And because loans are so long now, many people end up underwater, meaning they owe more on the car than it's worth. If the car gets totaled or stolen, insurance might not even cover the full loan balance. You're stuck paying for a car you don't even have anymore. Auto loans also come with a lot of predatory practices. Dealerships mark up interest rates. They sell you extended warranties and gap insurance and maintenance plans you don't need. They focus on the monthly payment instead of the total price. We can get you into this car for just $450 a month, they say. But they don't mention that you're paying that for 7 years, and by the end, you've paid $40,000 for a car that's now worth $12,000. And finally, payday loans. These are the absolute worst. Payday lenders target people who are desperate. You need $200 to make it to your next paycheck. The payday lender says, "Sure, no problem. Just give us $230 in 2 weeks." That sounds reasonable, right? $30 for a 2-week loan? But do the math. $30 on a $200 loan for 2 weeks translates to an annual percentage rate well over 300%. Some payday loans effectively charge 400% APR or more. But here's where it gets really evil. Most people can't pay back the loan in 2 weeks, so they roll it over. Now they owe the original amount plus another fee. 2 weeks later, they roll it over again. Before long, they've paid hundreds of dollars in fees on a $200 loan, and they still owe the original $200. It's a trap, an endless cycle. And payday lenders know exactly what they're doing. They set up shop in low-income neighborhoods. They target people with bad credit who can't get traditional loans. They make billions of dollars a year off the desperation of working people. So let's recap. Credit card debt, high interest, psychological tricks, and easy to spiral. Student loan debt, massive balances, generally not dischargeable in bankruptcy, affects your entire life trajectory. Medical debt, unpredictable, devastating, but often negotiable, and with some recent credit reporting relief. Auto loans, you're paying for a depreciating asset, often underwater, predatory dealer tactics. Payday loans, the worst of the worst, designed to trap you in a cycle of debt. Each type of debt is a different beast, and you need different strategies to fight each one. That's what we're getting into next. Step 3. Debt elimination strategies, finding your path out. All right, we've covered the psychology and the types of debt. Now let's talk about how to actually get out. There are several proven strategies, and the right one for you depends on your specific situation. I'm going to walk through each method, explain how it works, and tell you when to use it. Let's start with the debt snowball method. This was popularized by Dave Ramsey, and it's probably the most well-known strategy. Here's how it works. You list all your debts from smallest balance to largest balance, ignoring the interest rates. You make minimum payments on everything except the smallest debt. On that smallest debt, you throw every extra dollar you have. You attack it with everything you've got until it's gone. Then you take that payment you were making on the smallest debt and roll it into the next smallest. Now you're paying even more on the second debt. You knock that one out, and the payment rolls into the third. The snowball gets bigger and bigger as you go. The reason this works is psychology. Remember, we talked about how your brain works. The debt snowball gives you quick wins. Let's say you have 3 debts: a credit card with a $500 balance, a student loan with $20,000, and a car loan with $8,000. If you use the snowball method, you pay off that $500 credit card first, maybe in just a month or 2. You get to cross it off the list. You feel progress. You get a hit of dopamine. That feeling of accomplishment motivates you to keep going. Here's the thing. Mathematically, the debt snowball isn't always the most efficient. If that $500 credit card has a 10% interest rate, but your student loan has a 7% rate, you're actually losing money by paying off the card first. But here's what Dave Ramsey understood. Personal finance is more about psychology than math. If you can't stay motivated, the math doesn't matter because you'll quit. The debt snowball keeps you motivated. Studies show that people who use this method are more likely to stick with it and actually become debt-free. Quick wins matter. Now let's talk about the other approach, the debt avalanche method. This is the mathematically optimal strategy. You list all your debts by interest rate, from highest to lowest. You make minimum payments on everything except the debt with the highest interest rate. Every extra dollar goes to that one. Once it's paid off, you move to the next highest rate, and so on. This saves you the most money in interest over time. Let's use the same example. You've got a credit card at 24% interest, a car loan at 6%, and a student loan at 5%. With the avalanche method, you attack that credit card first, even if it has a big balance. You're killing the debt that's costing you the most money. Mathematically, this is the smartest move. You'll pay less interest and get out of debt faster in terms of time and money. The downside? It's harder psychologically. If your highest interest debt is also your biggest debt, you might be chipping away at it for a year or more before you see it disappear. That can be demoralizing. You don't get those quick wins. For some people, that means they lose motivation and give up. So here's my advice. If you're the type of person who can stay focused on long-term goals, use the avalanche. You'll save money. But if you need those psychological wins to stay motivated, use the snowball. The best method is the one you'll actually stick with. Now, what about debt consolidation? This is where you take out one big loan with a lower interest rate and use it to pay off all your other debts. Now, instead of 5 different payments to 5 different creditors, you have one payment to one lender. This can make your life a lot simpler, and if you get a lower interest rate, you'll save money. For example, let's say you have 3 credit cards with balances totaling $15,000 and interest rates around 22%. You're paying about $450 a month in minimum payments, and most of that is going to interest. But you have decent credit, so you qualify for a personal loan at 10%. You take out a $15,000 personal loan, pay off all 3 cards, and now you have one payment of maybe $320 a month at a much lower rate. You're saving money, and you're simplifying your life. The danger with debt consolidation is this. If you don't change your behavior, you'll just rack up new debt. You consolidate the credit cards, but then 6 months later, those cards still exist. And if you start using them again, now you have the consolidation loan plus new credit card debt. You've made the problem worse. So consolidation only works if you're disciplined enough to not create new debt. A lot of people aren't. That's why this strategy fails for many. It's not that the strategy is bad, it's that people don't address the underlying spending habits. Another option, negotiating directly with your creditors. Most people don't realize this is even possible. They see a bill and they think they have to pay exactly what it says. But the truth is, creditors would rather get some money than no money. If you're drowning and considering bankruptcy, the credit card company would rather you pay them something instead of nothing. So you can call them and negotiate. Here's how it works. You call the credit card company and say, "I owe you $10,000, but I'm in a really bad situation. I can't make the payments anymore. I'm considering bankruptcy, but I'd rather work something out with you. If I can scrape together $7,000 and pay you in a lump sum, will you settle the account?" A lot of times they'll say yes, especially if your account is already delinquent or close to it. They know if you go bankrupt, they get nothing. So they'll take 60-70 cents on the dollar and call it even. The downside? This will hurt your credit score. When you settle for less than you owe, it shows up on your credit report as settled rather than paid in full. That's a negative mark. Severe delinquencies, charge-offs, and collections typically remain up to 7 years from the first default date. Also, the forgiven debt might be considered taxable income. If the credit card company forgives $3,000, the IRS might consider that $3,000 of income and you'll owe taxes on it. So you need to be prepared for that. But if you're already drowning, a hit to your credit score and a tax bill might be worth it to get out from under the debt. There's also something called a debt management plan through a credit counseling agency. Nonprofit credit counseling agencies can negotiate with your creditors on your behalf. They set up a payment plan where you send one payment to the agency each month and they distribute it to your creditors. Often, they can get your interest rates reduced or waived entirely. The downside is that you'll be in the plan for 3 to 5 years, and you usually can't use credit cards during that time. But for people who are overwhelmed, this can be a lifeline. Just make sure you use a legitimate nonprofit agency. There are a lot of scams out there. Finally, let's talk about the statute of limitations on debt. Every state has a time limit for how long a creditor can sue you to collect a debt. It ranges from 3 years in some states to 10 years in others, but most states fall between 4 and 6 years. After the statute of limitations expires, the debt is time-barred. The creditor can still ask you to pay, but they can't sue you. If they try, you can go to court and have the case dismissed. Now, I'm not saying you should deliberately default on your debts and wait out the statute of limitations. Your credit will be destroyed. You'll get calls from collectors. It's stressful. But if you're already years into an old debt, you need to know your rights. The statute of limitations limits the right to sue. It doesn't erase the debt itself. The debt can still appear on your credit report for up to 7 years from the date of first delinquency, regardless of the statute of limitations. And here's something critical. If you make even a small payment on a time-barred debt, or even acknowledge owing it in some states, you can reset the statute of limitations in many jurisdictions. So if a collector calls about an 8-year-old debt and you pay $20 or confirm you owe it, you might have just restarted the clock. Before you pay anything on an old debt or acknowledge it, check your state's laws. Talk to a lawyer if you can. Know your rights. So let's recap the strategies. Debt. Snowball. Smallest balance first. Quick wins. Best for motivation. Debt avalanche. Highest interest first. Best for saving money. Debt. Consolidation. One loan to pay off multiple debts. Good if you have discipline. Negotiation. Call creditors and settle for less. Good if you're desperate, but will hurt your credit. Debt management plan. Nonprofit agency helps negotiate. Good if you're overwhelmed. Statute of limitations. Understand your state's rules. Time-barred debt can't be sued on, but the debt doesn't disappear. Credit reporting follows separate timelines, and even acknowledging old debt might restart the clock in some jurisdictions. Each strategy has trade-offs. The key is choosing the one that matches your situation and your personality. Step 4. Bankruptcy. When and how to use it. Now, we need to talk about the word that scares everyone. Bankruptcy. For most Americans, bankruptcy feels like failure, like you're admitting you couldn't handle your life. But here's the truth. Bankruptcy is a legal tool. It's been part of American law for over a century, because the country recognized that sometimes people need a fresh start. Hundreds of thousands of Americans file for bankruptcy every year. It's not rare, it's not shameful, it's a legal right. There are 2 types of personal bankruptcy you need to know about: Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Let's start with Chapter 7, which is sometimes called liquidation bankruptcy. Here's how it works. You file with the bankruptcy court, and a trustee is appointed. The trustee looks at all your assets, your house, your car, your bank accounts, everything you own. Some of those assets are protected by exemptions, which vary by state. Whether you keep a house or car depends on state exemptions and staying current on secured payments. Most states let you keep your primary residence up to a certain value, your car up to a certain value, retirement accounts, and basic personal property. Anything that's not protected can be sold by the trustee to pay your creditors. But here's the thing. Most people who file Chapter 7 don't actually lose anything. Many Chapter 7 cases are no asset cases, meaning there's nothing for the trustee to take. Why? Because the exemptions cover most of what ordinary people own. You're allowed to keep your house if it's under the homestead exemption limit. You're allowed to keep your car if it's under the vehicle exemption limit. You're allowed to keep your clothes, your furniture, your basic stuff. The trustee isn't coming to take your TV and your couch. After the trustee does their investigation, your unsecured debts get discharged. That means they're gone, wiped out. You don't owe them anymore. Credit card debt? Discharged. Medical bills? Discharged. Personal loans? Discharged. You get a fresh start. The whole process usually takes about 4 to 6 months from the day you file to the day you get your discharge. Now, not all debts can be discharged in Chapter 7. Student loans are generally not dischargeable absent undue hardship. Though limited discharges do occur in some cases, proving undue hardship remains extremely difficult. Child support and alimony can't be discharged. Recent tax debts can't be discharged, although older ones sometimes can. But most of the debt that's crushing ordinary Americans, credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, that all gets wiped out. There's a downside, of course. Chapter 7. Bankruptcy stays on your credit report for 10 years. That's a long time. It will be harder to get credit during those years. If you do get credit, you'll pay higher interest rates. You might have trouble renting an apartment because landlords check credit. Some employers check credit, so it could affect job opportunities. But here's what people don't realize. If you're already drowning in debt, your credit is probably already terrible. You're already missing payments, already dealing with collections, already being sued. Bankruptcy might actually be a step up, because at least the debts will be gone, and you can start rebuilding. Also, you can start rebuilding credit immediately after bankruptcy. Get a secured credit card, where you put down a deposit, and that becomes your credit limit. Make small charges, pay them off every month, and your credit score will start to rise. Many people noticeably recover their scores within 2 to 3 years with disciplined habits, secured cards, low utilization, on-time payments. Results vary individually. Within 5 years, the bankruptcy is hurting you a lot less. It's not a life sentence. Now let's talk about Chapter 13, which is different. Chapter 13 is sometimes called a wage earner's plan or reorganization bankruptcy. Instead of your debts being discharged immediately, you enter into a repayment plan that lasts 3 to 5 years. The court looks at your income and your expenses and calculates how much you can afford to pay each month. That payment goes to the trustee, who distributes it to your creditors according to a plan approved by the court. The big advantage of Chapter 13 is that you can keep all your property. You don't have to worry about the trustee selling your stuff because nothing gets sold. You're paying back at least some of your debt over time. This is especially useful if you have assets you want to protect. For example, let's say you have a house with equity that exceeds your state's homestead exemption. In Chapter 7, you might lose the house. But in Chapter 13, you can keep it as long as you keep making your mortgage payments and stick to your repayment plan. Chapter 13 is also useful if you're behind on your mortgage or car payment. The repayment plan can include catching up on those arrears. So if you're 3 months behind on your mortgage and facing foreclosure, Chapter 13 can stop the foreclosure and give you 5 years to catch up. Same with a car loan. This is a powerful tool if you're trying to save your house or your car. The downside of Chapter 13 is that you're stuck in the plan for 3 to 5 years. During that time, you're living on a very tight budget because a chunk of your income goes to the trustee every month. If your income goes up, the trustee might increase your payment. If you lose your job or have a financial emergency, you might not be able to make the payments, and if you can't, the case can be dismissed and you're back where you started. About 1/3 of Chapter 13 cases fail before completion. It requires discipline and stability. Also, Chapter 13 stays on your credit report for 7 years, which is better than the 10 years for Chapter 7, but it's still a significant hit. And you're still in debt for those 5 years, which is psychologically tough. You're not getting the immediate fresh start that Chapter 7 provides. So, when should you file bankruptcy? Here's my rule of thumb. If your unsecured debt is more than half your annual income, and you can't realistically pay it off within 5 years, even with an aggressive plan, bankruptcy is worth considering. For example, if you make $40,000 a year and you owe $30,000 in credit cards and medical bills, that's manageable. Tighten your budget. Use the debt avalanche or snowball, and you can knock it out. But if you make $40,000 and you owe $80,000 and the interest alone is eating you alive, you're not going to dig out of that. Bankruptcy might be your best option. Also consider bankruptcy if you're being sued or your wages are being garnished. Once a creditor gets a judgment against you, they can garnish your wages. Federal law generally caps wage garnishment at the lesser of 25% of disposable earnings, or the amount by which weekly disposable earnings exceed 30 times the federal minimum wage. Some states provide stronger protections. If you're already struggling, losing a significant portion of your income can push you over the edge. Filing bankruptcy stops the garnishment immediately. It's called the automatic stay, and it's one of the most powerful parts of bankruptcy. The moment you file, all collection activity has to stop. No more calls, no more lawsuits, no more garnishments. It's instant relief. But bankruptcy isn't for everyone. If most of your debt is student loans, bankruptcy won't help much because student loans usually can't be discharged. If you have a lot of secured debt, like a mortgage or car loan, bankruptcy might not be the answer. You'll still have to pay those or surrender the property. And if you're going to need credit soon, like if you're planning to buy a house in the next year, bankruptcy will make that very difficult. Here's what I recommend. Before you file, talk to a bankruptcy attorney. Most offer free consultations. They'll look at your situation and tell you honestly whether bankruptcy makes sense. Don't be embarrassed. They see this stuff every day. They're not there to judge you. They're there to help you understand your options. And in a lot of cases, they'll tell you that you don't need bankruptcy, that there's a better way to handle it. But you won't know unless you ask. One more thing. Be very careful about bankruptcy mills and predatory attorneys. There are lawyers out there who will push you to file, even if it's not in your best interest, because they want the fee. A good bankruptcy attorney will look at your full financial picture and might tell you not to file. They'll explore alternatives first. Do your research. Check reviews. Ask for referrals. This is too important to trust to the first ad you see on TV. Let's recap. Chapter 7. Fast, most debts discharged, exemptions protect ordinary property, stays on your credit for 10 years. Chapter 13. Slower, repayment plan, you keep everything, good for saving a house or car, stays on your credit for 7 years. Bankruptcy stops garnishments and lawsuits immediately. It's a legal tool, not a moral failing. Talk to an attorney, explore your options, and don't let shame keep you trapped in a situation that bankruptcy could solve. Step 5. Your 90-day action plan. All right, we've covered a lot. Psychology of debt, types of debt, elimination strategies, and bankruptcy. Now let's bring it all together into a concrete action plan. This is your roadmap for the next 90 days. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, week by week, to start getting control of your finances. Week 1. Face reality. This is the hardest week because you have to stop avoiding. Get a notebook or open a spreadsheet. List every single debt you have. Credit cards, student loans, medical bills, car loans, payday loans, money you owe to friends or family. Everything. For each debt, write down the creditor, the balance, the interest rate, the minimum payment, and the due date. Do not skip this step. You cannot create a plan until you know what you're dealing with. While you're doing this, pull your credit report. Go to annualcreditreport.com, the official site. You can pull free reports weekly from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Check all three and dispute errors right away. You'd be surprised how often there are mistakes. Old debts that should have fallen off. Debts that aren't yours. Wrong balances. If you find errors, dispute them immediately. The bureaus have to investigate, and if they can't verify the debt, they have to remove it. Also in week 1, calculate your net income. Not your gross salary, your actual take-home pay after taxes and deductions. Then list all your expenses: rent, utilities, food, gas, insurance, phone, everything. Be honest. Don't lowball it. If you spend $400 a month on groceries, write $400. The goal here is to see where your money is actually going. Most people have no idea. They think they spend less than they do. Once you have your income and expenses written down, subtract expenses from income. What's left? That's what you have available to attack your debt. Week 2. Make a decision. Based on what you learned in Week 1, decide which debt elimination strategy you're going to use. Are you doing the snowball or the avalanche? Are you going to try to consolidate? Do you need to call creditors and negotiate? Are you considering bankruptcy? You don't have to have all the answers yet, but you need to commit to a direction. If your debts are manageable and you just need a plan, go with snowball or avalanche. If they're overwhelming, start researching consolidation loans or call a nonprofit credit counseling agency. If you're already drowning and can't see a way out, schedule a free consultation with a bankruptcy attorney. Don't wait. The longer you delay, the worse it gets. Week 3. Stop the bleeding. This week is about stopping new debt from accumulating. If you're still using credit cards, stop. Cut them up if you have to. I'm serious. Get scissors and cut them up. You can't get out of debt while you're still adding to it. If you need a card for emergencies, keep one and freeze it in a block of ice in your freezer, literally. That way you have to wait for it to thaw before you can use it, which gives you time to think about whether it's really an emergency. Also in Week 3, look for quick ways to save money. Cancel subscriptions you're not using. Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships, whatever. If you haven't been to the gym in 3 months, cancel it. That's $50 a month you can put toward debt. Look at your phone bill. Do you really need unlimited data? Downgrade your plan. Look at your car insurance. Call around and get quotes. You might save $200 a year just by switching companies. Every dollar you save is a dollar that can go toward your debt. Week 4. Understand your rights with debt collectors. If you have any debts in collections, you need to know your rights. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act primarily governs third-party debt collectors, not original creditors like your bank or credit card issuer directly, though state laws may cover them. If a third-party collector contacts you, you have rights. If you dispute a debt within 30 days of the first notice, the collector must pause collection until it mails verification. For example, the original creditor, amount, and proof of authority to collect. There's no fixed deadline for them to respond, but they can't continue collecting until they've sent verification. Send a letter, certified mail, return receipt requested, requesting validation of the debt. Here's what many people don't know. Collectors cannot disclose your debt to third parties. They can't call your family members and tell them you owe money. They can contact them to try to locate you, but they can't reveal why they're calling beyond location information. Violations of these rules happen. Aggressive call frequency, pressure tactics, attempts to shame you by contacting others. But those violations can be grounds for complaints or lawsuits. Document every contact. Know your rights. A lot of times, collectors can't actually prove the debt. Debt collectors buy old debts for pennies on the dollar, and sometimes the paperwork is incomplete or missing. If they can't validate the debt, they have to stop trying to collect it. This doesn't erase the debt, but it stops that particular collector from pursuing you. Month 2. Start attacking. By now you've got your plan, you've stopped adding new debt, and you understand your rights. Now it's time to start making progress. If you're using the snowball method, throw every extra dollar at your smallest debt. If you're using the avalanche, attack the highest interest rate. Make minimum payments on everything else. Every time you get extra money, a tax refund, a bonus at work, birthday money from grandma, it all goes to debt. No exceptions. This is also when you start looking for ways to increase income. Can you pick up overtime at work? Can you do a side gig on weekends? Drive for Uber, deliver food, mow lawns, babysit, whatever. I know you're already tired. I know you're already working hard. But this is temporary. You're in crisis mode right now, and crisis mode requires extra effort. If you can bring in an extra $500 a month for 6 months, that's $3,000 toward your debt. That could eliminate an entire credit card. Month 2 is also when you call creditors and negotiate if you need to. If you're behind on payments, call them before they call you. Say, I'm having financial difficulties, but I want to work something out. Can we discuss a payment plan or a settlement? You'd be surprised how often they'll work with you. They'd rather get something than nothing. Get everything in writing. If they agree to settle for less or reduce your interest rate, make them send you a letter confirming it before you pay a dime. Month 3. Evaluate and adjust. By now you've been at this for 2 months. Check your progress. Did you pay off any debts? Did you at least make a dent? If yes, great. Keep going. If no, if you're not making any progress, something needs to change. Maybe you need to get more aggressive about cutting expenses. Maybe you need to bring in more income. Maybe you need to consider consolidation or bankruptcy if you haven't already. Month 3 is also when you start thinking about habits. Because here's the hard truth. You can pay off all your debt, but if you don't change the behaviors that got you here, you'll just end up back in debt. Why did you accumulate this debt in the first place? Was it medical bills you couldn't control? Okay, that's not your fault. But was it overspending on stuff you didn't need? Keeping up with friends who make more money than you? Using shopping as therapy when you were stressed? You need to address the root cause, or this will happen again. Start building an emergency fund. I know that sounds impossible when you're in debt, but hear me out. Even if you can only save $25 a month, do it. Put it in a separate savings account that you don't touch. Because the next time something breaks or you have an unexpected expense, you want to have cash instead of reaching for a credit card. Even a small emergency fund, $500 or $1,000, can break the cycle of adding new debt every time life happens. Days 91 and beyond, keep going. After 90 days, you're not done. Debt elimination takes time. If you owe $30,000, you're not paying that off in 3 months unless you win the lottery. But you've built momentum now. You've got a system. You've stopped adding new debt, you're making progress on the old debt, and you're starting to change your habits. That's huge. Every month from here on out, you're getting closer to freedom. Here's what you need to remember for the long haul. First, celebrate small wins. When you pay off a debt, even a small one, celebrate. Go out for ice cream. Take a day off. Do something that acknowledges your progress. This journey is hard, and you need to recognize your victories along the way. Second, be patient with yourself. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have months where you can't pay extra because something came up. That's okay. One bad month doesn't erase all your progress. Just get back on track as soon as you can. Third, don't compare yourself to other people. Social media makes it look like everyone else has their life together. But that's a lie. Most people are struggling just like you. They're just not posting about it. Focus on your own journey, not what other people are doing or what they have. Fourth, get support. Talk to someone who understands. Maybe it's a friend who's also paying off debt. Maybe it's an online community. Maybe it's a financial counselor. Don't try to do this alone. Having someone to talk to makes a huge difference. And finally, keep learning. The more you understand about personal finance, the better decisions you'll make. Read books, watch videos, listen to podcasts. Learn about budgeting, investing, credit scores, taxes, all of it. Knowledge is power, and the more you know, the harder it is for banks and creditors to take advantage of you. Let's recap your 90-day plan. Week 1. Face reality. List all debts. Pull your credit report weekly. Calculate income and expenses. Week 2. Choose your strategy. Commit to a plan. Week 3. Stop adding new debt. Cut expenses. Save money wherever you can. Week 4. Understand your rights with debt collectors. Send validation requests if needed. Month 2. Attack your debt aggressively. Look for ways to increase income. Negotiate with creditors if needed. Month 3. Evaluate your progress, adjust if necessary. Start building an emergency fund. Address the behaviors that cause the debt. Days 91 and beyond. Keep going. Celebrate wins. Be patient. Get support. Keep learning. This plan works. I've seen it work for thousands of people. But it only works if you do it. You can watch 100 videos about debt elimination. But if you don't actually sit down and list your debts, if you don't actually make the phone calls, if you don't actually change your spending, nothing will change. The information is useless without action, so I need you to commit right now. Commit to week 1. Commit to sitting down this week and facing your reality. That's all you need to do right now. Just start. Conclusion. We've covered a lot in the last hour. Let's bring it all together. We started with the psychology of debt, how banks use minimum payments, present bias, and the ostrich effect to keep you trapped. This isn't your fault. The system is designed to exploit human psychology, and you've been fighting an unfair fight. But now you understand the game, and that gives you power. We broke down the 5 types of debt-crushing Americans. Credit cards with their high interest and psychological tricks. Student loans that are extremely difficult to discharge and follow you for decades. Medical debt that can devastate you through no fault of your own, though with some recent credit reporting relief. Auto loans where you're paying for a depreciating asset and often underwater. And payday loans, the absolute worst, designed to trap you in an endless cycle. Each type of debt requires a different strategy, and you now know what you're dealing with. We covered the elimination strategies. The debt. Snowball for quick psychological wins. The debt avalanche for mathematical efficiency. Debt consolidation for simplification. Direct negotiation with creditors for settlements. Debt management plans through nonprofit agencies. And understanding the statute of limitations, knowing that it limits the right to sue, doesn't erase the debt. Credit reporting follows separate timelines and can be reset in many states by even acknowledging old debt. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. The right strategy depends on your situation, your personality, and your goals. We decoded bankruptcy, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Bankruptcy isn't failure. It's a legal tool that exists because society recognized people sometimes need a fresh start. Chapter 7 wipes out most unsecured debt in 4 to 6 months, but stays on your credit for 10 years. Chapter 13 lets you keep your property and catch up on mortgage or car payments through a 3 to 5 year repayment plan. Both stop garnishments and lawsuits immediately through the automatic stay. If you're drowning, bankruptcy might be your best option. Talk to an attorney. Don't let shame keep you trapped. And finally, we created your 90-day action plan. Week by week, step by step, exactly what to do starting right now. Face reality in week 1. Choose your strategy in week 2. Stop the bleeding in week 3. Understand your rights in week 4. Attack aggressively in month 2. Evaluate and adjust in month 3. And then keep going, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. Here's what I need you to understand. Financial freedom is not a myth. It's not reserved for rich people or lucky people. It's a system. It's a series of steps that anyone can take. Millions of Americans have walked this path before you. They were drowning in debt just like you might be right now. They felt hopeless. They felt like they'd never get out. But they did. They followed a plan. They stayed consistent, and they broke free. You can do this too. But knowledge without action is useless. You can watch this video 10 times, you can take pages of notes, but none of it matters if you don't actually do something. So here's what I need from you. Before you go to bed tonight, I need you to do one thing. Just one. Open a notebook or a spreadsheet and write down one debt. Just one. Write down who you owe, how much, and the interest rate. That's it. That's your first step. Because once you write down one, you'll write down another. And then another. And before you know it, you'll have the full picture. And once you have the full picture, You can make a plan. And once you have a plan, you can take action. And action is what changes everything. Tomorrow, pull your credit report. The day after, calculate your income and expenses. One step at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. You didn't get into this situation overnight, and you won't get out overnight. But every single day, you can take one step forward, and those steps add up. In 3 months, you'll look back and be amazed at how far you've come. In a year, you'll have paid off debts you thought would haunt you forever. In 5 years, you could be completely debt-free, building wealth, living the life you actually want instead of the life your creditors trapped you in. I'm putting templates in the description below. A budget spreadsheet. A list of nonprofit credit counseling agencies. Links to check your state's statute of limitations on debt. Information about your rights under the FDCPA. Everything you need to get started. Download them. Use them. They're free. This is not just information. It's a toolkit. If this video helped you, subscribe to this channel. Next week, we're talking about building a budget that actually works. Not some restrictive plan that makes you miserable, but a realistic system that lets you live your life while still making progress. We're also going to cover credit score repair, how to negotiate medical debt, and strategies for dealing with the IRS if you owe back taxes. There's so much more to learn, and I'm here to walk you through all of it. Leave a comment and tell me which strategy you're going to try first. Are you going with the debt snowball or the avalanche? Are you going to call your creditors and negotiate? Are you considering bankruptcy? I read every comment and I reply. This is a community. You're not alone in this. Thousands of people are watching this video right now, and they're in the same situation you are. Some of them are further behind than you, some are further ahead. But we're all on this journey together. One more thing. If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, that's normal. This is a lot of information. Your situation might feel impossible. You might be thinking, this will never work for me. I'm in too deep. I want you to hear this. I have seen people with 6 figures of debt become debt-free. I have seen people living in their cars turn their lives around. I have seen people who thought bankruptcy was their only option find another way. And I have seen people who did file bankruptcy successfully rebuild and thrive. Your situation is not hopeless. It's not too late. It's never too late. Take a deep breath. You've just spent an hour investing in yourself, learning how to take control of your financial life. That's more than most people ever do. Most people just keep sleepwalking through life, letting the banks and the creditors and the system push them around. But not you. You showed up. You learned. Now you just have to act. And I believe you can do it. Not because you're special or lucky, but because this system works. The math works. The strategies work. They've worked for millions of people, and they'll work for you too if you commit. So here's my challenge to you. 90 days from now, I want you to come back to this video and leave another comment. Tell me what you accomplished. Tell me which debts you paid off. Tell me how much your credit score improved. Tell me how it feels to not be afraid of the phone ringing anymore. Tell me about the moment you realized you were actually going to make it. I want to hear your story. Because your story is going to inspire someone else who's watching this video 6 months from now, feeling exactly how you feel right now. Your success is going to give them hope. And that's how we break the cycle. One person at a time, one debt at a time, one victory at a time. You are not your debt. You are not your credit score. You are not defined by how much you owe or who's calling you or what mistakes you made in the past. You are a person with value, with potential, with a future. And that future starts today, right now, with one small step. So take it. Write down that first debt. Face reality. Make the plan. Take action. And change your life. Thank you for watching. Thank you for trusting me with the last hour. I'll see you in the next video. Now go. You've got work to do.